Good morning. So I wanted to discuss a bit of a hardware change in my setup. I'll get some pictures of it, but first I wanted to cover what's going on. My audio recording solution is what I have changed. What I have been using for the longest time to record videos and everything else is my Zoom H4n portable recorder. This has been a fantastic device. I'm not getting rid of it because it still is a fantastic device. It's got two XLR inputs on the bottom. I use one typically for my lapel mic. I don't always use the lapel mic because in my setup, typically I'm close enough that I can use these two really high quality stereo inputs that you can change a little bit of the pickup pattern on in order to capture sound up close. You can record up to 4 total sources, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a line in on that front. But this is just a really nice portable mixer. I bought this version, which is the I'll call it the OG version. When it originally came out, I think it was maybe a year on the market. It has been a phenomenal device for me. On the back, it's got threads which mount to standard tripods. So I'll put that there, get this out of the way. Sorry for the focus going a little funky here. This is my portable tripod. I spent a long time looking at some of these. A lot of people use those ones with the funky folding legs that they use. I wanted something that was more rigid and would give me more options. So this has a ball head for articulation that rotates, plus this motion. Comes with a Velcro strap. And due to its design, you can mount this to a pole, but this is primarily what my Zoom was attached to for me to record. So this would be set up, I'd have it parked about here, this on it, and then I have this lovely little wind sock that goes on the top for wind blocking, and then I had a pop filter, just a standard circular pop filter that has the bendable arm that came out that I mounted to one of the legs on this, and then I kind of spun it around to put the pop filter right here in front of all of this. Even so, you could still hear a couple of the pops because this was sitting about here. I know it's the top of the frame, but it was sitting very close to me. And then my keyboard would sit out about here, my mouse about here, and this blocking right in the middle. And that's why as I moved my arms to try and grab things, move things, play a game, whatever, I would always bump this and you'd hear me thwap into this or the little bended arm for the pop filter. Now the other thing about this was if I was going to shoot any other type of video, I had to take most of this setup apart so that I could take this out mobile, so that I could hook other things up to it, and that made it a little difficult. I do have the power adapter, I even have a remote control for this, but setting all of this up just creates a lot more cabling around here. Now at my desk, when I'm recording some of those game videos, I'd be playing for an hour plus, and that really drains batteries very quickly, so definitely wanted to keep it plugged in. Now over the decade plus that I've had this thing going on, the biggest problem that I've had are some of these buttons are clicky, and if I notice that the levels are too low because I forgot to reset them after coming back from a shoot elsewhere, and then I come home and I look at the levels and go, oh crap, I'm in the middle of a game. Bonk, bonk, bonk. You'll hear all that very easily coming through because it translates right to those main mics. The other problem that I've actually started to have with it is the power system here isn't a switch, it's a pull and release. So you have to pull this switch down, trigger it, and then let go. To turn it off, you have to do the same thing. Pull and then release. Focus, there we go. All right, so you can see there. Now it still works, but it doesn't work consistently. I'll have to pull and then kind of wiggle the switch up and down to get it to connect, to actually trigger this thing to turn on or turn off. And because of that, it's becoming a little difficult to use sometimes consistently. And because of how much this cost, and it's still my portable recording solution, I really don't want to wear it out and damage it. So I wanted to start finding something better. And I did look at newer models of this, and they do have an H5n that has interchangeable mics on the top, which I thought would be really nice to have. Buy a couple of those. But the cost of all that and the fact that I don't have a lot of spare time to go out and do a lot of other shoots other than stuff I try to do downstairs when I do reviews, it just made it very difficult for me to want to continue using that as my main at-computer solution, because while I'm at my computer, there's better options that I could come up with. And so I started looking at different mic solutions. And ultimately, I settled on this. The Elgato Wave 3. And I picked this for a number of reasons, but I looked at a whole slew of different options. First and foremost, I started looking at XLR mics and a single or dual channel mixing board. I have experience using those in the past, and initially that's the way I wanted to go for the best type of audio quality and the most options in my experience. But I also had to realize that I'm not doing anything with multiple users. I'm sitting at my computer, so do I really need a mixing board and all that extra stuff to just record some high quality audio at my PC? What I did for a little while with my Zoom was it also has a USB option on it. So you can connect a USB cable on the side, USB mini, I believe, and you can run it into the computer and use it as your PC's mic. And I did that for about a week, but having to constantly turn it on, turn it off, it's in the middle of my desk taking up all this extra space, was just very difficult to deal with. And that's why when my old headset died and I upgraded to my Sennheiser, I got one that had a decent mic on it. Now I still like this mic, but I can't use it as my primary just because it picks up so much extra noise. There's a bit on the back for some noise cancellation and a bit on the front just to try and equalize the sound. But then right over there where I'm pointing is my NOS, which creates a lot of noise. Even when it's being quiet to the human ear, the microphone still picks up quite a bit of noise from it. And under my desk is where my PC sits, just because if it ramps up, it still makes noise. And all that gets picked up by that microphone and even the Zoom, because it sits here out on the edge of the desk. And because the way those mics have a cross pickup pattern of 90 degrees, it catches all that stuff very well. I mean, if you've listened to any of my videos, you've heard me clicking on the keyboard and all that stuff. So I wanted to try and find something that I could finagle a little better and give me some different options that would work. So I looked at a number of solutions. I ruled out XLR fairly quickly, because if I'm going to buy a $100 to $150 mic, I'm then going to need about a $100 to $150 mixer, and I'm not going to buy the best, but I'm also not going to buy the cheapest because I want decent quality and decent functionality and features. And that's where this guy came in. I looked at 3 different models primarily. I forget one of them because it was primarily an XLR solution that had a USB functionality on it. It was $100. It was more of a podcast mic that had a dual cardioid input, so the front and the back had 2 cardioid receivers on it that picked up. I'm not doing podcasts, it's just me, so I didn't really need to worry about that one. Next one, I looked at a HyperX that had RGB, and they had a basic one that didn't have RGB, but it also had selectable pickup patterns, and again, not really what I needed. My main holdout on the HyperX was that it only went up to 48,000 kilohertz, and that's just a bit lower quality because my Zoom goes up to 96,000. And that's what I record in, which is why it sounds so realistic and rich. Even when it's picking up a lot of the noise around me, it just sounds so much better. And that's why I went with the Wave 3, because it also goes up to 24-bit, 96,000 kilohertz. And that was a huge thing for me on that. The input on the front's nice. The gain on the front is nice. It's not one you really want to adjust in the middle of recording, simply because you're going to hear the slight clicks on the knob. You can do some other mixing on this. Not really something I would worry about personally, but it is nice to be able to push in on that button and select the mix of what you hear if you're using the line level output, so you don't have any delay coming out of the PC. But you can also mix on there what you hear between the PC, the game, the system audio, whatever you've got cranked through it, and the microphone. So if you're doing a stream or something, you can cross-channel mix, which is nice. I don't do a whole lot of streaming. but that is a nice functionality. The main software portion of the mic that I got is something I'll cover here in a minute, which is their actual mixing software that they provide with it, which is the Wave, I believe. And it's pretty nice. It works really well. It's very detailed. And it is basically like having a digital mixing board on your computer. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. If I did want to do any actual mixing of sources, even with some of the videos I've made for work in the past, being able to pull audio from a browser, a musical source, a camera, a microphone, and another microphone, it would be really nice to be able to do that. And the software they provided allows you to select multiple different sources, and then on your computer you just choose that mixing software's output as your source, and you can broadcast through software as a mixing board, and you have full control of all the volumes and tweaks on there. It's not going to be quite as in-depth as a proper mixing board, but I was surprised at how well it works. Predominantly right now, though, I'm just taking straight sound out of the Wave 3 straight into my screen capture game recording software that I'm recording on right now, and that's what I'm using, so it works really well. My last couple of flight sim videos, my last Tower 3D videos, have all been recorded on this, and honestly, I've noticed nothing but an improvement to the software, to the sound, mostly because it's no longer sitting right on my desk, and it's actually mounted to a pole above here. I'll take a picture, a short video of the way I've got it set up. I had to get it kind of up and over my monitors to get over to me. Before I knew I was going to keep it, the mic does come with this little stand on the bottom that is weighted. It's actually quite heavy. But I did use that, and I set that right up here where the mic had been previously, and it worked really well. But ultimately, I wanted to get it off of my desk so I would completely be free from bumping into it, and it would just sound a lot better. The other benefit, because it's just a single input being split between stereo, I don't have to worry about channel problems. If you heard any of my tower videos once in a while when I lean to the left or I lean to the right, you would actually hear me move between the left and right channels, and depending on where I had the mic, it would favor one of those channels, which can get really aggravating when you listen to something for a long enough period of time. So I'd have to go in there and kind of balance some of the channels out a little bit to make it sound more smooth and not trigger anybody. So overall, from this, I'm extremely pleased with how it works. It's got a very simple capacitive mute button on top, which you can just bump with a finger. It's not something that's easy to bump, but it changes the lights to red to let you know that it's on mute. And being able to do that when I sneeze or cough, or if somebody walks in the room, or if I just don't want to record audio for a minute because there's not going to be anything from me, that's not something that I could easily do on this solution, because this is just a mixer and there's no straight up mute option. I could pause recording, but then I have to go back in and fix it. So typically I would just leave this recording, and then what I would do when I would get to that moment of the timeline, I'd have to chop the audio off. So it would make my workflow in editing more involved. And I don't mind doing that, but if I can just simply flip the button and mute it, hey, I don't have the problem anymore. Now they did sell some options, peripherals for it online. The first one being a pop filter on front. It mounts to these two screws and then just kind of blocks the front. It looks nice, but it's $30. I already owned a pop filter. I figured if I need to, I can mount it here. And then if I like this mic and I buy the arm to mount it to, I can just mount it to the arm. That's what it's designed for. It's got a hook on there for that. But honestly, due to the way I have it mounted and the placement that I have of it, the built-in pop filter catches pretty much everything that I would need to, because as I'm saying pop, I'm actually popping the P and pushing the air out, but because the mic's not in front of my mouth anymore, it's off to the side and above me, I don't have that problem. That's the benefit of having a proper cardioid pickup pattern versus just a 90-degree angle of attack, as it were. So honestly, I don't feel the need to buy the pop filter. It looks good. It is a good filter, but if you're going to keep it much closer to your face or in your face, then it might be something you want to consider. But if you have those other simple pop filters, I think I paid $6 for mine, it's going to work just fine. It's not a problem, and you don't need to spend the $30 on their proprietary one. Now, if you want it for looks, knock yourself out. It's probably a great pop filter. It's just too expensive, for me at least. The other thing they have is the anti-bump system, which changes this to a shock mount. So you'd mount this to the shock mount, and then that would mount to the arm or to the stand here. All that really does is it puts a bunch of little bungee cords in a crisscross pattern that hold and suspend the mount for this, so that if you bump the mic or you move the arm, the mic can move within those bungee cords and you won't actually hear the bumping of the mic. I thought about it, but again, I've got it mounted to an arm up above me where I sit right here. It actually sits, the top of the microphone, which is this part because I got it mounted upside down, is actually just a little bit above the top of my monitors. I have three 24-inch monitors. They're mounted about 4.5 inches above my desk, so you can imagine how high up that is. Now, I'm a fairly tall person, so when I sit up all the way, the mic's pretty close. It's pointed right at my mouth, and I've had no problems with it picking me up. I thought about pushing the mic off to the side so I could get it a little closer to my mouth and not have to worry about doing quite as much gain on the microphone, but no need. I tested the mic sitting way back up here behind my keyboard, and I could still be heard. It was just a little bit quieter, but the quality was perfect. So now that it's not sitting on my desk, me bumping the tabletop, typing on the keyboard, those sounds are reduced and they're not translating directly into the microphone as they did when my Zoom was sitting on the desk and all of that. So again, shock mount, not bad, but really not something I needed. Now, the only other thing that I bought for this was the actual mounting arm, which I needed to be a little careful with because I needed to figure out how I was going to mount it. And I looked first at a $100 arm that would come out the bottom. It's not really one of those full swing, like the old lamps from Pixar in the front. That's kind of the arm that most people buy, and that's the arm that I bought. But this one was more the professional style arm, super high end. I think Unbox Therapy and a couple other big YouTube channels use this type of an arm, but it's just a straight pole that has a couple articulation points in it, and you can lock it down or you can leave it a little floating. Kind of like the mod mount for this, where it has that arm at the top that you can adjust. And then if I've got it floating about here, it's either going to be so low to the keyboard that I'm going to have to try to finagle my hands under it, or it's going to be blocking part of my monitors, and that's not at all what I wanted. So I wanted to keep it up and out of the way. So I bought the arm, but I had to look at the right size. Typical, I'll call them scissor arms, are about 14 to 15 inches. And when I took measurements with the mount that lifts, it gets it up about an inch or two off the desk, depending on your mount. When I looked at a bunch of different solutions and then added the 14 inches to that, it was not tall enough to get up over my monitors. So the one I bought is 19 inches per segment, so it's really long. It's about, let me get back on camera, it's about that big. So the first arm is only mounted about 1/2 inch to 1 inch above the desk surface. It's a very sturdy mount, but because of that low center, it doesn't pull or move as much on the mount. And then it goes up about 1.5 inches to 2 inches above the top of my monitors. And I did this because at some point my monitors will need to be replaced. Because I don't know what I'm going to buy, I wanted to give myself a little bit of cover. And in doing that, it also allows me to pull the microphone down over the monitor and get it back down into my face. So if I'm doing some serious recording, or it's more important that I'm streaming, or because this video is being recorded on this in my typical gaming position mount that is above my monitor, so there's no obstruction. It's almost completely out of the way, and that's really what I like about it. Now, you don't have to go crazy expensive. If you don't need all that mixing software, you don't have to buy something like this. There are cheaper mics that provide really good audio. You don't necessarily need to go to 96,000. You could be perfectly fine with 48,000, which is a DVD quality sound. There's no need to go something this expensive unless you want and need those features and are trying to provide the highest quality that you can. And that's fine. There are plenty of cheaper arms. You don't need to spend $60 on a mount. Mine supports a bunch of extra weight because I may put other things on mine at some point in the future. I don't know. But I needed something that would work for me and would support it and hold it up in a good way. So I'll put links to everything I bought down in the description. I've overlaid some images of some of the microphones I was considering, some of the stuff I looked at, as well as what I bought ultimately, arm and the mod mic, the Wave 3's right here. Not really going to do an unboxing. There's nothing to show in an unboxing. It's a microphone, a stand, a 5/8 inch adapter, and then a USB-C cable. With that said, let's move the hardware out of the way and take a quick look at their software. Okay, let's take a look at the Wavelink software. Now, I'm not going to go super in depth on this simply because there's no need to. It's basic software. There's two things that I wanted to cover though. On the right here is the Wavelink software, and on the left side are my app volume and device preferences for Windows. You can see I have it configured with a couple of different mixing channels here. You can have as many of these as you can really support, or as few. You can see there's number 7, which I don't have. I just kept it to 6 for the potential things that I would need. So in here you've got your game audio, your system audio, Discord or other voice chat, web browser, and music. 7 for me would probably be a video source, but probably not going to do that. Now, in this, each mixing channel has 2 options. You've got the stream mix so that you can hear or play this source on top of what your output is, and then you've got just the output. So for me at the moment, I've got the Wave 3 muted and the mix all the way up because I'm controlling volume through separate systems right now. So in this case, the mixer is not what I'm using to tweak my audio levels, but as I mess with this and I'm talking, it's tweaking that in the reality of it. So I leave this kind of maxed out. I don't typically run the Wavelink unless I'm actually going to be recording multiple sources, which I have done once, but I don't really mess with it too much. In here you can see I've got the stream output muted for all the other sources, just so there's no chance of it coming out, but I do have all of them still set to monitor, and that's the earphones, which is this part, the monitor mix. That's me being able to hear that actual output. Currently, I've got it set to deliver the monitor mix to the headphone jack on the actual Elgato Wave 3 microphone, and that's what's set to be listened to. Because I have nothing plugged in and I've got all that stuff essentially muted, there's absolutely nothing playing out of the back of my system. Now, I could also tell that to let me hear it on the stream output, which means that then I would hear my output through the stream output and hear yourself talking. It gets a little bit funky, especially if there's any delay. Now, it's not too bad, but I don't like hearing my own voice play back in that way just because it gets confusing. So I have it set to this. Now, if I wanted to hear it through my actual earphones, I could simply select my headset through the regular analog output that I'm using, and suddenly the monitor mix would play through my earphones and I could hear it privately without it actually going out of the stream. So there are multiple ways to do that and verify that everything's working. So if I'm playing a video or I'm checking an intro on a stream, I could say, listen to this, test that everything's working before it goes out, and then go back to the regular mix, and hey, happy days. Now, if you get louder and louder, you can see that the levels will actually change color and get closer to a red. But because I don't have the gain up high enough, I'd really have to yell and shout to get it up high enough. And that's why you probably don't see things going in. Typically, you'd want it to be a little bit into the yellows to give you good high sound and peaks, but you don't want it to be in the reds, and you definitely don't want it to be super low down into the greens, because what that means is when you go into post, you'll end up having to boost your levels and make things louder, which is why I mentioned I got the arm that I did, because I'll need to at times pull this down and get it closer to my face. If I'm recording a game or I'm doing Discord, I can boost my output in Discord, and if I'm just recording a game, I can go into post and up my levels a tiny bit across the audio channel because it'll be consistent. Now, the way this mixing works is you have to select a back-end application to deliver the audio to each one of these. So at the moment, there's only 3 sources according to Windows: my system sounds, my recording software, which is Action, which is currently an audio device in the background, and then Steam, which is in the background. So I could tell Steam to select one of these specifics inputs, and it would deliver there. Now, if I'm running a game, typically that game is what will pop up in here. So let's pull up an audio source real quick. Let me hit my keyboard shortcut, give it a second. Boom, there's Winamp. Suddenly I have a player in here. So I could map this to my music input, which would then be right over here. And I could rename this to Winamp. And suddenly I've got an input for music in the system. And then I can tweak this to be lower for me. I could mute that for me to hear it. Or if I just want a nice soft background music and I've got some royalty-free stuff, I could put that in the back, have my mix going, and if I want to fade that in, I can do so nice and smoothly. Let's say that I've got Discord loaded. I could say I want to pick up voice chat as that. Now Discord, I'm not in a channel, so let's throw in Discord real quick. Boom, suddenly Discord has a couple of sound sources here that I can map over to my voice chat. And again, everything will suddenly be there and good to go. So it's really nice. You can come in here and tweak all that stuff. Typically, once you have these things set, they don't forget even if you close it. So if I link you to Elgato there, and then I believe this is just playback. Yeah, so I can map it out to that. And then if I close out of, Winamp, goes away. Let's relaunch Winamp. It comes back still mapped to Elgato. So it's nice that it comes back. You don't have to go change everything between reboots. Let's pull up my browser now. Let's load YouTube. And as soon as I actually get a video loaded, it typically will come in and grab the source right there. So suddenly Google Chrome is a source. So as long as you have the video loaded and ready to go, you can pick your browser as an audio source and again map it. So very powerful software. It's a really nice mixing board. It does take a little bit of configuration, but it works really well and it works out of the box. There was literally no setup other than just me picking these that I wanted, and I can move them around anywhere I want. So if I say system audio, I want you over here, I can grab and move that. You can click on the buttons to select those sources and modify things. So it's really nice. You can even select different audio inputs on your computer to map to these things as well. So if you've got multiple sources, say I wanted to use my headset microphone, I could on one of these sources and then have two headsets. I could hook my Zoom H4n up to this and have multiple audio inputs running through that and then map that into my stream here. So this software is really nice and really quite powerful, and it works really well. And I can link those as well. So that's the reason I settled for the Wave 3. I'm not really going to be needing the Wavelink software all that often, but I just wanted to highlight that as one of the main reasons I bought it, because I get the mixing options for as often as I'll actually need them. I can come in here and use this and be very happy with it, set it up on a side monitor, and I can do a pretty decent stream. Outside of that, it's a really good microphone. It does great high quality audio. Capacitive mute button's really easy. Good pickup pattern, points at my face. So really pleased with it. Overall, very satisfied with my purchase. I think I got a good deal on it. I think I paid about $150 for it. So that's the change in my audio setup. Hopefully you've noticed nothing, honestly, because that was my goal. You shouldn't really hear a degradation in quality. Maybe it got a little better with some of the more quiet noise in the background. But otherwise, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.